What is up, guys? I am the one and only Equal Double T, and in this video, we are going to be comparing the Xbox One S controller to the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. So without further ado, let's begin. First up, let's take a look at the build quality of these controllers. Now, the Xbox One controller, my biggest problem with it is the build quality. They're just not well-made controllers. I've had multiple controllers have joysticks and triggers randomly stop working. Big problem for a lot of people is the headphone jack will randomly go out. It's happened to me multiple times, my brother multiple times, my friend, pretty much everybody. It's just something that happens to these controllers for some reason. The plastic is decent, but it's really just not a very well constructed controller. The Switch Pro controller, it feels a lot more dense. It feels a little bit heavier. The plastic they use is definitely of higher quality, and pretty much just everything about it feels more premium. And in terms of build quality, I will definitely give this one to the Pro controller. Coming up next, we have the comfort. Now, of course, this is subjective to you. Personally, I think these are both very comfortable controllers. I use them very frequently. For hours on end, and I never had problems with either of them. The Xbox One controller, it just feels very nice. It has a nice big shape to it, can fit my hands really nicely, and it's enjoyable to use. The Switch Pro controller, also same way, it feels very comfortable to use, has a little bit smaller of a feel, however it does just melt right into my hands. So in terms of comfort, I'm going to have to call it a tie, but of course it is subjective to your preference. Next, let's talk about the features of these controllers. Now, I think the biggest feature that the Xbox One controller has over the Pro controller is the factor that it has a headphone jack. Now, even though in order to talk to other people on the Switch, you have to use the Nintendo app, some people just like to, hear the in-game sound through a headset. Like, I like to do that sometimes, and there's no headphone jack, so you can't really do that. Other features of the Xbox One controller are it has rumble in it, just standard rumble. Micro USB port up here. It also takes batteries still, 2018, and still got batteries, there's where the batteries go. But you can buy rechargeable battery packs, which is what I use. The Pro controller, despite not having a headphone jack, has the HD rumble inside, which is a lot more precise than the rumble on the Xbox One. It has a built-in gyroscope and motion controls. It has a 40-hour rechargeable battery life, and it uses USB Type-C, which is kind of like the future of USB. So in terms of features, even though the factor that the Pro controller doesn't have a headphone jack is annoying, overall it does have the better features. Last but not least, let's take a look at the buttons and the joysticks. Now in terms of joysticks, they're both nice joysticks. They both have roughly the same radius. They're both about the same height. It's just on the Switch Pro controller, they're a lot more rubberized and they're way less rough on my thumb. So in terms of joysticks, I definitely like them better on the Pro controller. In terms of the D-pad, this is obvious. The Switch has the way better D-pad. Nintendo is known for having solid D-pads, and this one is no different. It just feels nice. On the Xbox One controller, that's one thing I never liked was the D-pad. It feels like a computer mouse, and it works perfectly fine. It's just not as nice. The A, B, X, and Y buttons, they're both good. On the Xbox One controller, they're solid. There's nothing really wrong with them. But on the Switch Pro controller, I do like them a lot better. They have a lot more of a surface on them, and they just feel nicer to press. They're very large. Taking a look at the center buttons, on the Xbox controller, you have the Xbox home button, and then you have the two buttons here. On the Switch controller is something I really like. You have the plus, the minus, and the home button, and you also have a dedicated screenshot button, which that's pretty nice for games like Mario Odyssey. All you have to do is just press the button rather than on the Xbox, press home and then press Y, it's just easier. In terms of the triggers and the bumpers, I do like the triggers on the Xbox One controller a little bit better. Now, they are really nice on the Switch Pro controller, except they're pretty much flat, just take a look. I really like both of them. In terms of bumpers, they're really not very good on the Xbox One controller. They're very clicky, and sometimes they just wear down over time, based on my experiences. On the Switch Pro controller, they're a lot nicer, softer to press, they just feel better. So in terms of which controller has the better buttons and joysticks, I would say the Switch controller does. I think I'm going to have to call this video a tie. Now, even though on paper, the Switch controller is definitely the better controller, the buttons are higher quality, it uses USB Type-C, it has all these features in it, there's just something that I really like about the Xbox One controller. It's just an enjoyable controller to use. I can't really pinpoint what it is. It's just, when you put everything together, it's a very solid controller that is nice to use, despite its flaws. Now, one thing to consider here is, the Pro controller is $10 more at $70 compared to the normal price range of $60 for the Xbox One controller. I'm going to have to call it a tie. I think they're both very solid controllers, and they're probably some of the best controllers gaming has to offer. I am the one and only Eagle Double T, signing off. Goodbye.